Over the summer, I told you guys that I was giving my dining room space in my house a makeover, and then I totally ghosted you guys about it for like 6 months.
He wasn't responding to any of my texts.
And this was a very unique room makeover, and I'm going to tell you all about it right now. We've lived in our house for just about 4 years. We have a sort of like main living space that is our living room, and we also use it as our dining room. And basically this dining space that we had just always felt like it didn't quite fit right. I always just felt like there was just sort of this table here, and it never felt like it was in the space, like it was permanent, like it was cohesive. It always just felt like I had thrown a table there, which is essentially what I had done. I put a rug under it to try to kind of anchor it with the rug. We moved the light to try to make the light anchor the space, and it still never felt right. You know, I knew I didn't need somebody to come in and tell me exactly every single piece to buy. I have my own general home decor style, but I needed somebody to give me tips on how to anchor the space and make it feel like it belonged here. And then that's when I heard about interior design consultation. And actually, as I started to look into it more, there is so many of these available. And I ended up going for a company. I worked with the website havenly.com, completely unsponsored. I didn't even tell them I'm doing this. I paid for it with my own money because I really wanted to test it out and see if it would work. Like if somebody could kind of come in and or look at my space and give me tips to make my space work better and more effectively. And I'm gonna share that process with you. Last year, when we did renovate our kitchen, I actually ended up doing a similar thing where I hired a professional organizer to do a virtual consultation to organize our new kitchen. I will link that video in the description box down below. I was extremely skeptical if it would really work, if I would like it, if the suggestions they gave me would be beneficial, and I was so pleasantly surprised. I was very wrong about any of my skepticism. The process of hiring and using a professional organizer, even virtually, was so good. I was like, you know what, I was wrong about that. Maybe hiring an interior designer, somebody who's of course, like what am I thinking? Of course somebody who's a professional at this is gonna be better at it than me. I used Havenly, and they have two options. They have a design online where you work one-on-one with somebody virtually, which is what I did. Typically it's $200. I was able to do it when they were doing a sale, which I've noticed they've done like 2 or 3 sales since then, so maybe like twice a year they'll do a sale where you can get the design online for like 99 bucks or something. They also do in-person options as well if you're interested in doing that. Quick break to tell you about the sponsor for today's video, which is perfect when it comes to a dining room, and that is CookUnity. CookUnity is the first ever chef-to-consumer platform that delivers chef-made meals directly to your house. In my opinion, it is next to impossible to find a meal delivery service that is going to deliver a meal to your home that requires no work on your end and actually tastes good, until I found CookUnity. I've had so many boxes of CookUnity at this point, and I don't think I've had one meal that I didn't like. A couple months ago, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law had their first baby, and we gifted them some CookUnity for the first few weeks of newborn life, and they liked it so much they're still using it. I mean, these meals are delicious, and they come ready to eat. I mean, you gotta warm them up, but that's it. You're not chopping, you're not dicing, you're not cooking. I think the reason the meals are so delicious is because CookUnity is chef-made meals. The chef cooks the meal with real ingredients, nothing artificial, and they offer up a wide range of meals from over 7 different dietary preferences. I usually will get 1 or 2 of their bowls because I love these for easy lunches. This is the Tofu Forbidden Rice Bowl by Chef Emily Peck, and even though you're getting chef-made meals, it doesn't mean that you're gonna be able to pour the miso peanut sauce on like a chef does. I don't have the skills, but it doesn't matter. It still tasted delicious. For dinners, lots of times we like getting some of the tacos and burritos. Sometimes my husband and I will each have our own thing, or sometimes we'll pick 2 things that go together, like maybe a chicken and one of the mac and cheeses, and we'll split it down the center. The white truffle mac and cheese with crispy breadcrumb topping is so good. I also want to mention that the subscription is super flexible. You can pause, skip weeks, or cancel at any time. To try it for yourself and get your first week 50% off, you can go to cookunity.com/butfirstcoffee or click the link in the description box down below. You can also use my code butfirstcoffee50 to get 50% off your first order. Okay, now back to sharing my experience hiring a virtual interior designer. I did the one-on-one virtual, which is what I'm going to talk you through here. So the way that the process worked, you pay for it, you answer a couple of questions about the space and about your style, and then it will suggest a couple interior designers for you based on your style. Because they have different interior designers, obviously, that all kind of, you know, different designers have different like general styles or whatever. But you answer a ton of questions. It's gonna ask you, especially if you're doing it virtually, to go through and measure the space. You're gonna answer some more questions about your style and what you like. You rank different things based on what your personal style is. Tell them furniture pieces you do or don't need help purchasing. And then just let them know a little bit more about the space. And at this point, you can choose to book a call with this person, just sort of chat through it with them more. I didn't opt to do this. Listen, I got enough on my plate already to like have a phone call. I'm like, I think the woman knows what I need from just writing it down. So I didn't even go as far as like having this one-on-one call that was part of the package that I paid for. And the first thing she did was she took all the information, and then again, you wait like 2 weeks or something, and she came back with like the first proposal. I think you get like 3 options. Each had like different names, and there were different sort of like motifs to each of them that sort of matched inside of what I had said my personal style was. And then she took that mood board and she ran with it. So there's a little bit of back and forth of her sending you a little bit, or him, I had a woman, sending you a little bit, and you're sort of like, yeah, I like this, or I don't like that one. And then they go back and they tweak it a little, they send you a new proposal. And as they're sending you that stuff, you can rate it, or you can thumbs it up or thumbs it down to help them continue to understand your style more and what you like. And then eventually at the very end, what you're left with is a full mock-up. You get a 3D rendering of the space with the furniture in there, and then inside of your portfolio, they're going to give you options for furniture pieces too. If you need to buy any of them, you literally can buy them directly through the site. And you can also click on each furniture piece and say, I don't love this one, show me alternatives. And I will tell you, through Havenly specifically, your designer is going to get some commission if you purchase your pieces through them. They are going to link to a lot of the more sort of high-end, expensive type sites. You're like linking to West Elm and to Pottery Barn and to all of those. So the price that you end up paying is really gonna come down to obviously where you end up sourcing a lot of this stuff. They are going to source a lot of the stuff from the higher end places, which is totally fine. But you could also do this on a budget a little bit as well, which is what I ended up doing. I was like, I'm not currently interested in spending $5,000 in furniture to remake this space. I already had a table I really love, a light fixture that we had bought when we did the renovation. And so what I like about it is that you kind of get that option. They kind of throw it all at you, and then you can choose to buy what you want to buy. I have a line of rugs that I've bought on Amazon before that I've always been really happy with, and so I went and found a very similar rug to the one that she was using. And I like that during the process, you're also able to sort of chat with them about other design things. Like I had some question about artwork, and I was like, what do you think about the frames? Like, where should I put the frames in the space? They feel a little bit awkward. I started putting everything together as my pieces came in. The first thing that I did was actually get the rug. And in the space prior, I had put a rug because I knew enough about like general home design that I was like, I need a rug to anchor this space. So it's not just this table floating here. But I made a huge faux pas and got a rug that was way too small. So the rug that she suggested, which was a much larger rug, and in my mind I was like, is this too big? Like, is this gonna be too big of a rug? But I was like, I'm gonna follow the process. This is just like when I tested out hiring a professional organizer. I was like, you gotta trust the process and do what they say. Okay, as I'm editing this video, I realized that I got my timeline wrong, and I actually did get my chairs and bench first and then the rug. So that's why you see different chairs popping around in here. But the first big thing I did was swap out the rug. So that's why I was talking about it first. I didn't order the exact rug she suggested, but I ordered the exact same size that she suggested. I rolled it out. I remember putting my dining room table back on it, and I was like, oh my God, literally just having the proper sized rug in here has made such a huge difference. I remember having this like aha moment where it was like, literally the $99 that I spent was worth it just for that. That seems a little dramatic, but it was like, I just needed that little bit of professional insight to be like, you need a bigger rug. There's a lot of back and forth during the process. Like we had sort of talked about, I'd really told her that my biggest problem with the space is it never really felt anchored. It's sort of awkward because there's one window that's not centered, and it's sort of just like never felt quite right. And so she had suggested doing a banquet type thing. So actually doing a bench. At one point there was even discussion of doing like a built-in banquet, which I thought was a great idea. Just the space is actually not physically large enough for it. But she was like, well, you could get the same sort of look if you went for more bench seating instead, like with a back, like a banquet bench. And when she said that, it was like, oh, like that makes so much sense. So I put the rug down. I'm like, this rug makes so much more sense. The idea she had for the banquet bench, like why didn't I think of that? That makes so much more sense. And I was able to put it all together. together. I did end up sourcing these on my own because I wanted to do it for a little bit more affordable instead of buying the options that she had. And like I said, that's sort of a nice thing about doing this the way that I did it, is you're not sort of like married to the specific brands that they say you have to use. I looked for a similar sort of style, like big accent chair in the colors of the accent chairs that she had suggested. And I found these ones that actually like I'm so in love with. They came totally put together and it was like really starting to feel like it was pulling together. I found this really great bench. So in her mock-up, she had 2 navy accent chairs and then sort of like an off-white bench option. And I ended up swapping that because I couldn't find navy accent chairs that I like. So I went for more off-white accent chairs and then did a navy bench. And so once I kind of had that all in there, I had the rug, it was feeling grounded. The 2 accent chairs with the bench really just made the space feel like it belonged. Like it was really starting to feel like it made sense. And then the last thing that I needed to move on to was in the mock-up, she had window treatments. And that was something that I always kind of knew. I was like, I feel like this space probably part of the reason it just always feels undone is there's no real window treatments. Like we have blinds, but I know that a window treatment just can make a room feel finished. But I was still a little bit stuck on this one last back wall. And I had sort of chatted with her about like, what should I do for artwork? It's this really awkward space. I didn't really get anywhere specific. And so I, on my own, completely separate from the interior design discussion, decided to wallpaper this wall. And I chose this sort of like wave wallpaper and put that there. I do still think at some point this one open wall will need some piece of artwork on it, but I just haven't quite gotten there yet with this one piece. And I feel like I could probably go back to the woman and be like, okay, this is where I am. I need this last piece of advice. And she would be able to help me, which I really love. But I put the wallpaper up and then the last thing was to do window treatments. She had these really nice sheer white curtains. They were almost identical to the ones that we had in the living room. So I did the same exact ones. And it is amazing how window treatments will just make a space feel finished. To me, it's like putting mascara on. It's like that final little thing and you're like, oh, that's what that was missing, some window treatments. And so there you have it. This is what my space looks like now, and I am so happy with it. Not only am I really happy with the way that it looks, which I am, I think that it came out really, really great. I think it matches my style, but I also just find it really functional, which I think was one of the things I was worried about as a mom with 3, like I have 3 kids aged 5 and younger. Now, I wanted the space to look pretty, but like I need this to be a functional space. It has turned out to be so great. That bench along the back wall is perfect for kids. It is so easy for them to sit there. It's kind of their little space and they can hang out and they can eat back there. And so not only am I so pleased with just the way that it looks, this space finally looks like it belongs here. It's not just a table floating, but it's also extremely functional. And I think it came down to, honestly, it was like probably about 85 to 90% the interior designer's tips and her suggestions, and then me taking that, and there was like 10 to 15% of me just tweaking it a little bit, you know, adding the wallpaper and sort of swapping out some of the furniture pieces, because again, I got small kids. I don't want to have to worry about them spilling macaroni and cheese on a $2,000 bench banquet. Just not interested in that in this season of my life. I went into this with honestly a lot of skepticism, and I can tell you that I think an interior design consultation is well worth the money. You can get it on sale for $99 or even not on sale, $200 to have somebody come in, professionally give you all of this feedback back and forth. It wasn't like one time where she was like, hey, put a bench up. Like we were chatting back and forth. I could have gotten on a phone call with her. She was sending me new tips when I was like, hey, I don't like that there. Then she would re-render it. I felt like I got at least $1,000 service. I finally had this space that made so much sense, and I liked it because I'm somebody who can be like kind of stubborn and opinionated about my space. And so I think that's why the idea of just like an interior designer has always been a little bit funny to me, because I'm like, I'm too stubborn for that. But I love this because you got all of this great advice and then you could do with it what you wanted and sort of tweak it and change it, make it more affordable here or there, or add a fun wallpaper if you wanted, like sort of tweak it a little bit if you wanted. So anyways, long story short is just like when I hired a professional organizer, I was proven very wrong. What I love about it is, unlike maybe just going for like a full-on service where they come in and they do everything, you can pay for this one-time virtual service. You can get all your renderings, you can get everything you want, all the ideas, all the inspiration, and like you could literally spend a year or two sourcing the pieces you need if that's what works for your budget. It's not like you have to spend this big chunk of money right up front. It's a lot more digestible, especially financially, or even just, you know, if you're doing the space yourself, like I got 3 kids running around. Like, I don't necessarily have a week to just like make over a room. I did this over the period of like 8 weeks, just like slowly kind of building it out. So anyways, that was my experience hiring a professional interior designer. I hope that you enjoyed this video. As always, thank you so much for stopping by and watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Remember to be kind to yourself and others, and I will see you all in my next video.